everybody to a new episode. Actually, this is the first episode of the new podcast, Beyond the Comfort Zone. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Nicole, and she is going to talk to us about her prickly journey. Change your mindset, change your life. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
Why prickly? What's prickly about your journey?
Well, I have lived some challenges in my life and found that I had some rough edges. So I, at the age of 2, started living through some health challenges. I couldn't bend my fingers when I was 2. And they found that I had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And it quickly moved to my legs. I've not found a picture, but the best way I can describe it in my mind is the splints that Forrest Gump wore when he was Run, Forrest, Run. I had those.
Another Forrest reference.
I had those as a kid to keep my legs straight at night so that I could wake up and move in the morning. And so just kind of the compounding of, my health journey over the years.
Is it just that instance of that juvenile arthritis, or other things happened?
It's escalated throughout my life, so the autoimmunes have just kind of compounded.
Okay.
I was also bit by a tick at age 10.
Oh, me too. High five.
That was a time when Lyme disease was just getting understood. I think it was, officially termed or coined in the late 70s, so this was mid 80s. I was actually at the rheumatologist when they found the tick, and there was just no thought. It was like, oh, pull it out, break it off in her head, she'll be fine. And so years later, as pregnancies and other things happened, my health continued to escalate. And I was finally diagnosed with chronic Lyme not till 2015. So all of that's been kind of the perfect storm in my body to create challenges that and other life things like relationships and
I was gonna ask, did that affect how you were in high school, how you were growing up? Did it impact you from your day-to-day activities?
It did. By the time I was in high school, I stopped growing. That was one other trap. I'm just short. So volleyball, between the inflammation and being short, I was left kind of to the back row, diving, and that wasn't good for my body. So I ended up quitting sports my freshman year, which was kind of my identity. I was kind of an athlete, and so kind of started feeling a little bit lost there with that, and then had some relationships and things happen in my family that kind of continue to build up the walls and the is life gonna change or get better? So probably in late high school, I think I kind of really shifted. When we were preparing, you said, what's kind of the pivotal, where do you think things shifted? And I think it was sometime in high school, I really built up walls and started wondering if, it was me against the world. So kind of embarked on I'll do it my way, I'll show them. Went off to college, ended up at A&M and got a degree by the skin of my teeth because don't always sometimes get into some self-sabotage type things that I deal with, but when I graduated, I wanted to make sure that I could take care of myself. So it was really important to me, based on things that I had seen, that I not be dependent on somebody else. And I ended up getting married and have had a great relationship, but I've always felt that I can't tear down that wall of what if the things that I saw happen to other people happen to me. So I need to be able to be, on my own. I need to be able to take care of myself. So
was there a specific moment, or it was a combination of different things?
Yeah, my family kind of imploded in high school, and I saw a situation where my mom didn't feel comfortable or think that she could make it on her own. And it made me feel like I had to be able to make it on my own. So it's almost that, you have these things that happen in your life, but it almost went the other way, where then I became so independent and self-driving that I continued to kind of build up those walls.
So what was the change? How did the change look like for you when you started building those walls and realizing you became very cynical, very angry at life, very negative? How did that change happen for you?
So I think it grew over time to where I'd say by my mid or early 30s, just kind of a grumpy, kind of an Eeyore, right? Like, it's hard when you wake up every day and you're not sure you're ever gonna wake up and not have pain or fatigue. My other big symptom is fatigue, like debilitating. And so, but, I ended up finding a husband and I ended up having a family, and then continuing to drive for that career. And I really just hit a point where I like to say I came to the end of myself, and apparently it happened earlier than it does for most people. It happened in my early 30s. And I literally, got to a point where I didn't know if I wanted to go on. Like, I was so stressed, and worried about performing that I contemplated, not being around for my family. And it's a big wake-up call. I've got a history of that in my family, and really didn't want to continue that journey. So really just started making steps to, I was raised in church, but kind of got away from that with all the cynicism, right? That kind of goes with it. But really made a decision to kind of cut back towards my faith, and start looking at where I was spending my time, and made the choice. There were a couple of times in my career where my husband and I said, we have to choose us or our family over work, and that was one of those times. And so I went to work and I was so terrified with fear, that I had worked really hard to gain a career, and then hated the job that I worked so hard to get. And so it was really hard to admit that and say, this isn't it's not bringing out the best in me. It's not who I want to be when I'm in this stress, because it's a very high stress role. But it was a God thing, because I was met with grace. And they ended up creating a role for me inside the company. And so I was able to step back. I've taken a couple leaves of absence. That was probably in 2018. I've taken a couple of leaves of absence, just trying to focus on my health, and getting it where it needs to be. But I've still really struggled with the mindset. I call it the battle of the mind, because in my case it truly is. Nobody's gonna say worse things than what
you're telling yourself.
Yeah, and so really just God pointing, continuing to put things in my life. When I was on the first leave, a friend that Mandy knows, Jessica, invited me to a church retreat, and I kept saying, well, if I'm on leave, sure, and then I was on leave. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't tell her. Shoot, I really gotta go. And one of the things that happened, I don't know if you guys have been at these retreats, but people write you letters, right? People tell you, and I've got a great group of friends, but you get in these, you convince yourself that these feelings are real, or these stories that you tell yourself are real. And it was a big eye-opener to see, thank you, how people saw me versus how I saw myself. And so really trying to, turn to God and look for places that would direct me back to the truth. That because my mind can be very deceptive.
Yeah, so tell me about your mindset at work versus your mindset all by yourself when you're talking all these negative thoughts to yourself. How does that work between your personal life and your work?
I struggle with it in both places, picking them apart. I can be very critical, overthinker.
Tell me about the exercise you did at
work. So a couple years ago, our boss, as a Christmas present, gave us she told all of us to write what we thought about our coworkers. What are characteristics? How do you describe your coworkers? And she put it on a cup and she printed it for us. And the left is what people said about me. and probably what people in my family would say too. But on the right was what I was really feeling. So here I am operating in almost like paranoia that I'm not enough, and I'm, cause even in the internal role, I found myself struggling, like still couldn't believe that they would offer me that, right? And I could speak my mind and be valued and, have this autonomy to do these things, but then also this fear that, oh, they're going to, I'm not doing enough, or, you know, she's not producing enough, that type of thing. And so it was one of those things where I really needed to see it. And so I found that I'm really a visual person. And thank you, Mandy, I forgot my little visuals over there. And what I found is some people don't need this, but I'm very visual. And so I started just placing this kind of stuff around my office to help me. So this is the vision board I did remotely with everyone this year. Just reminding myself, you know, of where my values are, where, you know, how I want to operate. So I have that up in my office. And then Hala reminded me of the beautiful things that you all said about me at our retreat, which I value as well. And then just, you know, simple things that might seem so, you know, easy for others, but for somebody with my disposition, and I was saying to Hala, I don't know if I was always like this. I don't think so. My mom said I was a really, like, never met a stranger, happy-go-lucky in elementary, right? And then I guess life just kind of kept beating me down. And so one of the things.
Those are off the Temu,
yes. But I think you can buy Etsy. They're all, but they're nice. They're like cardstock. So I actually have them taped. I just put them back to back. But I literally glance at them throughout the day. And my sister bought me a cube, and it's like almost like a cancer survivor cube mindset thing. But it all applies. You know, I'm a fighter. I can do this. Like, and I've just found that I've got to find different ways to combat that negative mindset. And so we've talked about, you know, fix versus growth. But also it's just the ability of the brain to rewire itself. It truly, you can change it. It's just, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to a ton of podcasts, and there's a bunch of neuroscientists out there, and it's all above my head, but really they just talk about how the subconscious brain is like 90%, you know, of what we're not even conscious of what's going on. And so it's really trying to learn for me how to break, you know, what's going on. And one of the things that he says is, you know, change your thoughts, your choices, your behaviors, and literally you can change your biology. And I had somebody say to me a couple years ago, and it really like hurt, I guess from an ego perspective, it really hurt me. Are you getting in your own way from healing? And I'll admit from like maybe a super clean eating perspective, because I'm supposed to eat basically ice at this point. Like maybe there, right? But like, why would I ever, right? Who would say, why would I want to remain sick, right? And you know, they said things like, maybe that's your identity. That's all you know is being sick. It's all you know how to talk about, right? And it took me a while to kind of marinate in that, and I don't think it's definitely not conscious, but is my subconscious wired now and programmed that all it knows is disease? And so I'm really kind of digging into that more. And therapy, EMDR, you know, maybe my body holds on to stuff more than, you know, I've talked about it with friends and family, or I've done talk therapy, but I've never done the EMDR, which is really
What's
kind of,
EMDR?
I did it.
it's amazing, I hear. So I'm just getting into it.
It got me past.
Did it, see? And with the Lyme disease and just kind of all the perfect storm, I've also had mold. And I'm very sensitive to toxins in the environment. So it's a kind of this perfect storm where my nervous system is literally kind of stuck in fight or flight. And so it's this perfect storm of, well, sure, she's grumpy, maybe she has a reason to, but how do I break that cycle, right? How do I get, because all of that, those negative thoughts are feeding anxiety and stress to my nervous system. And so it's not a simple thing to unravel, but I am finding that little things like this are potentially,
These are your tools.
they're moving the needle. I'm still not there yet, but I'm really trying to look into that more versus, watching Netflix and things like that, right? Like, how can I figure out and learn more about
how to
healing
be
myself?
more self-aware.
I'm very self-aware. How to retrain my nervous system and my negative thoughts. That's
so you are in that never-ending growth and learning and education to improve. So what would you tell someone who is relating to what you're saying, who has similar issues but don't know where to start from? How would you advise them to take the next step? What would be the next step for them?
So I think, God's continuing to put the right people in my path, whether it's, I did that retreat, and then I joined a mom's group and found connection there. My husband wasn't ready to join a group at church, and so I did it on my own because I needed that connection. That was during COVID, and then after that, I went through some hard things kind of related to COVID and work, and was directed to the Freedom group at Crosspoint, and that was, I grew a ton in that, right? And that, tying and even, the negative thoughts that I have in my mind and tying it back to what does the Word of God say, it's a good litmus test on who's really in my mind, right? And it's usually not, God. And so, tying myself to faith for sure. I've done a lot of talk therapy, but I've gotten more in the recent years into the cognitive behavioral therapy and the EMDR, just to see if maybe my body's holding on and it's kind of preventing a breakthrough. And really just trying to have more grace with myself. I can be cynical, I can be an overthinker and all the things, and I do that the most towards myself. And so having grace and understanding, and I'll tell others, but then I'm talking to myself too, like progress over perfection. Because Scott, my husband, will make fun of me and say, we're gonna go walking tomorrow, but no, we're not doing 2 miles. We can just go around the block.
Exactly.
And I'm like, but I can do 2 miles. And he's like, then you won't walk again for 4 days. Stop it. Like, I'm just kind of and then, so.
All in.
Yeah, and so consistency too, because I can like new shiny things and, forget the basics. And so it's really consistency, getting into God's word, like I said, that who's really right.
Yeah.
Does that fit the litmus test of what's truth? And my emotions aren't necessarily true.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
I'm feeling them, but it doesn't mean it's real. It is real. It's not
the feelings
true.
are real, but they're not the truth.
Correct.
The absolute truth.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your faith, you mentioned your husband. How do you stay accountable every day to keep, your lifestyle, to keep the healthy eating, to keep staying away from toxins, to lead the life that you desire? And, I'm sure I appreciate you being so vulnerable and open and sharing those things. How do you stay accountable? How do you stay on track?
I'm not perfect by any means. I feel like you guys help me stay accountable. You love, but there's also accountability here, and what are our values and how do we want to be received and how do we want to operate, right? And so this group has been life-changing for me. My family as well, but also, making sure that I've learned this recently, and again, I'm always listening to podcasts, but it was just saying, an evening reflection of, maybe it wasn't perfect, but here are the things that I can do better. Because one of the things I struggle with too is insomnia. And so the overthinking and the racing brain, but I found that kind of if you do that mind dump at the end of the night, maybe it helps a little bit, take that edge off. And then waking up. So my newest thing for a couple of weeks has been, it's this, yes, living in gratitude, right? Yes, being thankful. But what I've always struggled with, and I kind of joked, and I'll, be in a hot shower and be like, I am whole, I am healthy, I am healed. Like, can I just fake it? Can I, and just act like this is just great, and I'm just not, right? Like, and I'm like, oh God, I'm trying, you know? But I heard a statement recently, and it's and. So I woke up, and it's still there. I'm still tired. I still hurt. And what am I gonna do today to live in integrity and feed my body and my soul and my life for the life I want, not the life I have. And so it's not perfect by any means, but I like the and. The and is life-saving for me because it's hard, you know, chronic illness is hard. And you do turn into some kind of an Eeyore, but I don't want to be that. I want to see the beauty in the world. And I see so much of what I deal with in my daughter. And so it's how do I heal and model better? And how do I have a regulated, you know, nervous system for how I react to her? And then also, how do I teach her to not be so hard on herself, right? And to, like, in sports, I was innately just good, right? But if I wasn't, I was like, I don't want to do this, you know? And she's very similar, right? And so how do we teach the growth mindset? And it might be hard, and so a lot of it is I want to be here for them, but I don't just want to be here and surviving for them. I want to thrive, and I want to be there for and create that environment for my family.
Yes.
So.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you to Hala because
So proud of you.
Okay, everybody's wondering, what is EMDR? You're gonna need to explain
yeah.
it to them.
So actually, I think I wrote it down because
Can you get stopped?
yeah, it's. Let me look it up again. I wrote it somewhere.
What do you remember?
Eye movement.
I don't know how to take it off.
Eye movement.
We did when I was
desensitization
crying at
and
4:30 and said I
reprocessing.
can't do this. She said, "What if I interview you?" And I said, "I love you." Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's eye movement
thank you.
desensitization and reprocessing.
Yes.
It's based on the electrical pulses.
And